again, and this time we're talking service delivery in Machabeng. Remember earlier I spoke to you about issue Hore. We'll be looking into Machabeng, the new in terms of what's going on. We'll be touching a lot on accountability and financial recovery plan that we have to look into. And joining us today is Mr. George Michalakis from the DA, who's the head for the Machabeng, who's overseeing Machabeng in terms of the role into advocating for accountability and structured financial recovery plan. And we all know how the DA is very vocal about accountability and making sure that things run in a positive manner. So without wasting time, Mr. George Michalakis, welcome to the current review. And yeah, so without wasting much more time, I want to know, since you are overseeing Machabeng, what have you discovered in Machabeng that is keeping you up at night, and what plans do you guys have in mind that can be put together, that can be put into action to actually assist that municipality, because we all know the problems. I don't even want to dwell on it.
Yes. Well, it will keep us quite busy if we have to dwell on all the problems. The things that keep me up at night are the same things that keep the residents of Machabeng up at night, and that is ultimately that the service delivery has completely collapsed. But to address the service delivery problems, we have to look at what the root is. And over the last more than a decade, the municipality has been hollowed out financially completely. I mean, the municipality has not had a successful audit for many, many years. It cannot pay its debt. In fact, its debt to the water board currently is bigger than the next 15 municipalities in the country, including a municipality like Joburg. So financially, the municipality has been completely ruined. And the consequence of that is that service delivery then suffers due to that. So since we do not govern the municipality, we have no direct impact on fixing that. But there is a recourse in the Constitution that we wanted to test, and we ultimately went to the Free State High Court to test this question of whether the provincial government has an obligation to then intervene in the finances of the municipality to make sure that it gets run properly. And we were successful in this specific court case, which will now ultimately see the provincial government and the National Treasury having a duty to jump in and help fix things, because the local ANC municipality doesn't seem to be able to do that. And we need to turn it around at some point. Otherwise, nothing will be left.
We've seen in most cases where municipalities, when they struggle, provincial government tends to jump in terms of, I forgot what they call that section, where they intervene. And we've noticed that the office of the new MEC for Kokta, Mr. Teboho Mokoena, have indicated that they will be intervening. So in that regard, how is the DA going to work with the MEC to ensure that service delivery is done, the plans are implemented? Because it had to take you to go to court in order for them to actually intervene and actually rescue the situation. So how are you guys going to work hand in hand?
So the section that they usually use is section 1391 of the Constitution. That's where they appoint an administrator. A very nice idea if you have competent administrators, but in past experiences, we see that they've appointed as administrators cadres over there who are not necessarily qualified to actually address the issues and the skills that are needed to turn that municipality around. In this specific case, it is not section 1391, but 1395. And it's different in the sense that it is a financial intervention. So the provincial government, along with National Treasury, has to come up with a financial recovery plan that is practical and that can be implemented, and then to oversee the implementation thereof by the municipality. So the municipality will then have to take certain steps to stop the wasting of money in some instances, in most instances, but also to pass a budget that is friendly to growth and arresting the decline. What we will do, obviously, from our side is to use the legislature and the municipal council, as well as here in Parliament, to make sure that a proper financial recovery plan is put in place and that it is ultimately implemented. I can also maybe mention to you that Section 1391, the one with the administrators, is voluntary. And in all the time that Maching has been maladministered, the provincial government at no point intervened in that municipality for whatever reason. I suspect it's political reasons, but it's the one municipality, although it's probably the worst run, where the provincial government has never, ever attempted to intervene and stop the decline. But Section 1395, the financial intervention, does not give the provincial government an option whether they want to intervene or not. The Constitution says if the municipality defaults in certain levels, which they've done, if they run it into the ground financially to such an extent that it meets certain requirements, which they've done, the provincial government must, and that word must was the crux of our court case, and the court found that the provincial government now has an obligation. What will we do? We will use every mechanism to our disposal to make sure that this financial recovery plan is sound and it then gets implemented. If they don't implement it, well, the municipality will ultimately have to be dissolved according to the court judgment.
Hectic. And the biggest problem that most of the municipalities, including Maching, is facing is the Eskom crisis and the water crisis. And also, I'm going to include the service providers, because we saw in the past that the municipality, at some point, one of the service providers also took it to court and tried to attach certain properties because they were owed money that they said they needed to be paid. Also, we saw with Eskom also taking legal steps to actually trying to recoup some of the money. So in that view, in your view, when it comes to the financial strategic that are going to be prioritized, how are we going to handle that? Because especially when it comes to the Eskom debt, it's not just the debt that you just wake up and think, oh, it can go away. It goes back many years and it gives a headache. If it was my debt, I don't know if I'll be able to sleep.
Yes. Well, I mean, ultimately, a municipality, the finances of a municipality is nothing different from your own personal finances, in the sense that you can't spend more than what you get in. It's like a normal business. And the problem, I think, the biggest problem that they are currently facing is, let's take the water board debt. It's 7 billion rand. Now, the water leaks, because of a lack of infrastructure investment, are so big that by the time the water reaches the taps, they've already lost half the water, which they then owe the water board for. So they've already incurred major losses in terms of the finances before they've even sold a cent of water to the community. So you have this massive loss. You don't have income, and where they do have income, ultimately, they do not do much in terms of collecting debt. So the municipality relies on a small group in 2 or 3 wards in the municipality that pay rates and taxes. They don't have the infrastructure to prevent any losses of income. And ultimately, I mean, they're set up for failure. What I think is necessary to do is firstly to make sure that the grants that they receive goes into infrastructure so that they can arrest or stop the loss of water, illegal connections with Eskom, and start making sure that they can do proper debt collecting. And in that instance, they will slowly but surely start to generate a bit more of an income. But you can't carry on losing 50% of the water before you've even reached the taps. The other thing is also, we need to look at all of these contracts that ultimately went to court from different service providers. And I'm not saying that's the case in all instances. But I, at some point, went to the Free State High Court to have a look at how many cases there are against Maching municipality. And it's in the hundreds of pretty much the same service providers And then we need to ask ourselves, but under what circumstances were these contracts given? And in one of the affidavits, if I remember correctly, the financial, the CFO or the former CFO made allegations that not even all of these contracts were above board. So you need to make sure that the contracts are awarded in the right tender process. You need to make sure that you don't pay 100,000 Rand for something that would ordinarily have cost 10,000 Rand. It's basic things that we know corruption happens through. And obviously you need to then decide. You can't steal from the community and deliver services to them. And then when an election comes, stand on a soapbox and say, we deliver services for you. You can't do that. Ultimately, the money that gets lost is not the money of the ANC or the DA or the municipality even. It's the money of the people. And it should ultimately benefit them, because the consequences on municipal level is that if you award contracts to the wrong people, if you don't invest in your infrastructure, ultimately the people who suffer are the community on basic things like water, like electricity, like having a clean community, children not having to walk through sewage to school. Those are the consequences that you have on a municipal level. So those are the things that I think need to be addressed, and it can be addressed if you have people who are serious about governing for the people and not themselves.
Speaking of governing, Mr. George, with the intervention, there's obviously a possibility of dissolving the council should the financial recovery plan fail. How would this impact Machabeng, and does the DA see this as an opportunity for changes in leadership?
Well, I would jump at the opportunity of Maching being dissolved, because I don't think the ANC will ever get more than 50% in that municipality again. And I think it's high time for a change of government there. I think in Maching, the ANC has shown that they're completely incapable of governing effectively. But obviously, what you would see is what I would like to see first is that the financial recovery plan actually works, because the interest of the community is paramount. That's at the center of it. So obviously, yes, get a financial recovery plan in place, make sure that it works, and turn that municipality around as soon as possible, because every day that it gets delayed, the problems continue and they get worse. But obviously, if the ANC is unwilling to do that and turn the municipality around, I would, with open arms, welcome a re-election in Maching and finally see the end of a majority ANC council in Maching. It would be as good for the community as the financial turnaround. But obviously, at this stage, the priority should not be the politics behind it. The priority should be to turn that municipality around and do it as soon as possible. It should have happened 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the past financial mismanagement, how do you plan on actually holding these municipal officials accountable and ensure that the needs of the community are actually prioritized?
Well, I think this is a problem that we face not only in Maching, but all over. When people are guilty of financial mismanagement, we should start seeing consequences for it. You can't just be redeployed as a CFO somewhere else or as a municipal manager somewhere else. There need to be consequences for mismanagement, because it has a direct effect on the lives of people. If you are responsible for any form of corruption, you should not be sitting in a municipal office. You should be sitting behind bars. And I think until we start seeing real consequences for people who over many, many years were responsible for mismanaging public finances, unless we see real consequences for that, I fear that we are going to have to go to court on many things and fight fights that should not even be a fight. So what we will do is obviously continue to hold them to account. Where we are aware of any corruption or any criminal acts, we will continue to report these to the police, and also try to uncover as much of this as possible through our mechanisms where we represent the people in Parliament, in the legislature, on the local councils. I think it's important, not only for the consequences, but that these things actually get uncovered. I know of reports going back, I think, almost 15 years. There was the Fivers report that implicated the then administration of the municipality of corruption, and I mean, the hollowing out of the finances of the municipality didn't start yesterday, and we're still not seeing real consequences for that. So I do think that as much as we hold them to account in the legislatures, I do think that at some point we would like to see also the police, the prosecuting authority, the legal justice system also coming to the party so that we can see real consequences.
True. And speaking of consequences, recently the mayor, Thandololo Hlalepa, was found guilty of assault and criminal injuria. What does the DA hope that this verdict will signal about accountability for public officials?
Well, I mean, it related to another matter. It was assault, if I understand correctly, if I remember correctly, of one of his protectors or something along that line. So it doesn't relate to the maladministration of the municipality itself, but it is a good thing to send the signal that no single person, not the president, not the premier, not a mayor, no one is above the law. If you make yourself guilty of contravening the law, whether it's for corruption or any other sort of a crime, there must be consequences. I think it restores the trust in our criminal justice system, and I also think it sends the right signal. What I think, or where I think we fall short, is that this is not the kind of action that you would expect of the first citizen of a city. This is not a dignified way for a public representative to behave. It should be a person that the community can look up to and respect. So personally, I mean, it would be too shameful to continue in such a position if I was ever in that position. The right thing for him would be to resign, to protect the dignity of the office. And if he does not resign, for his party to urge him to do so. But we're not, unfortunately, seeing any movements in that regard. Doesn't have to relate to the municipality itself in this instance. It's a question of the dignity of the office, and by association, the actions of the person who is representing that specific office. And I think Maching deserves better.
Absolutely. And with the pledge that the DA is committed to 2 billion investment for infrastructure upgrades in Maching, do you feel that this is actually sufficient considering the debt that Maching is actually in?
It will not be sufficient. I mean, any investment is welcome. Any assistance is welcome. But the infrastructure decline is of such a nature that it's going to require billions and billions of rands over many years to turn this around. I remember not too long ago, I asked a parliamentary question on what it will take to restore or to make sure that the water infrastructure to towns like Henneman and Ventersburg, which is also in Maching, that it keeps up with the population growth, not even the declining infrastructure. And the response that I got was in the hundreds of millions of rands, only for that one project. That doesn't even include the entire city of Welkom, which is at the core of Maching. Their water pipeline infrastructure dates, the younger system dates from the 80s and the older system from the 50s. These systems are built to last for 30, 40 years. And we are now 70 years later, and they're still working with that old system. So it will require a lot of money. But I do think that you have to start somewhere. Any investment would be good. And I do think that infrastructure investment at this stage should receive a priority from the municipality itself. All the grants that they get, they first need to look at what is their requirements for infrastructure investment. And then I also think that the provincial government should step in and make sure that they also assist them in this. Because ultimately, if we leave it to decline for too long, it will become a provincial crisis where we won't only have water shedding as the people of Machabeng are experiencing now, but we will have an entire city with no water for extended periods at all. And that is a humanitarian crisis. Schools close, hospitals close. So 2 billion rand is a good start, but I think the need is much, much bigger due to the neglect.
Yeah, definitely. And tell me, if I'm a resident of Machabeng, what is it that I can do as a member of society to help aid with the conditions that they are under currently?
Well, I am going to give a very political answer, but that is ultimately the solution. And that is, don't vote the people who completely destroyed the municipality. Don't vote them into office again. If a government, and I say the same for the DA, if we constantly say that if we govern poorly, replace us. Vote, you ultimately get the government that you deserve. So what the residents of Machabeng can do ultimately is, since we live in a democracy, is to use that vote. That is the ultimate power. And the people of Machabeng need to realize that the number of, or the amount of power that they hold is to such an extent that they can completely bring this to an end by just making sure that they get rid of people who don't govern in their interests. And I think ultimately that is the solution. In the meantime, I do think that obviously where water is not in abundance, that we need to use it sparingly. People also need to abide by the law. Make sure that you ultimately get your electricity in a legal way. If you have a municipal account, pay it, provided you get obviously your services. That's another contentious issue, is people are slowly but surely starting to get sick and tired of paying for services that they don't get, which is a ticking time bomb in Machabeng. So there are many things that you can do. Be vocal. Hold your government to account. Don't just leave it to the political parties to do it. We have a wonderful democracy where civil involvement is one of the important things, and I think one of the most neglected things. But ultimately, I do think that if a party doesn't govern in your interest, get rid of them. That's the beauty of democracy.
All right. I think we've come practically to the end of the show. Thank you so much for being with us, Mr. George, today. And your message of change has obviously been spread. And till next time.
It was a wonderful interview. Thank you for the opportunity. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Thank you, Mr. G. No, and you are off, and hope to see you in December when the whole country descends down to you. Hopefully, we'll be out of the stats.
I'll welcome you guys with open arms.
No, definitely.
Thank you. Take care there.
Thank you very much. And that was Mr. George. Lebza!
Yebo.
And how was your first day at work?
It's been great.
So great. No, you did very well.
No, it's been great being with you today. You are a lovely person. I can't see why I wouldn't enjoy it.
No, I'm happy, and I'm happy that you managed to jump in, even though we threw you into the ocean. You managed to swim. You see, that's why they say the best lifesavers are female.
Okay, do they really say? Who says that?
Some character from Baywatch, from what I heard back in the days.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, and I'd like to apologize also to our viewers because we were supposed to have Lerato speaking about the women. Is it the Wheel of Steel? Now I forgot. Yeah, Lerato about the reality show, and the gentleman also from Mkondo Wesizwe. Due to technical problems, they couldn't join us, but we will make a follow-up on those situations. And yeah, going forward, I want us to also engage with our audience. You know, if you are a part and parcel of the current review, drop us your views, drop us news that are happening in your communities. Tell us what's new, tell us what's not. We can just DM us on all social media, and definitely our producers will look into it. And you've got a beautiful lady, a rose amongst the songs, that's going to be making sure that, hey, the whip is being cracked and the message is being delivered. And yeah, but I'm proud of you, man. You did quite well. That's what I was saying. The show is gonna have a different feel to it, you know. And I can see. I saw you even brought our producers out of the corner. Thank you for coming out. It's a good thing, level, and I'm looking forward to working with you. To be honest, you're such a lovely co-host, and yeah, this was a very nice 64th episode of the current review that we managed to kill
I can't
it.
wait for the next one. Oh, we did? I think you're
Yeah,
going to
sure.
cut.
So, ladies and gentlemen, like I always say, we've come to the end of the show, and this time I'm gonna hand over the ropes to our beautiful Rose to actually lead us out. And I'm gonna say to you, thank you for tuning in, like our pages, and the rest is handed over to Lexa.
Thank you guys for joining us today, and hopefully we'll be seeing you next time on the next episode as we finish off the season. It's going to be wonderful. Remember, check us out on our socials. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Spread the word. We're here and we're going far.